All right, film geeks, today's class is about Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, so let's talk about it. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of All Right, Let's Talk About It. My name is Savannah. I am your host. I do film reviews and film industry commentary, and today we are talking about Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Now, before we even get into the film itself, let me just be very clear here, okay? I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. Like nothing. When I say nothing, I mean not nothing, never. I don't know. Like, I know it's a game, but I don't know what kind of game. Is this a video game? Is it a board game? Like, what is it? Is it a card game? Is this like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm lost. So when I say I know nothing, I literally know nothing. I don't. All I know is this is the thing that we would give people a hard time for. Haha, you play Dungeons and Dragons in your mother's basement, that kind of deal. You know what I mean? But I'm no longer 15, and I'm not going to judge you for it. So if you enjoy Dungeons and Dragons, this is your thing. I love that for you. I don't get it, and I don't have to. It is not for me to get. As long as you get it, as long as you love it, I love it for you. But I know nothing. And I think a lot of people are probably wondering, people who are like me, who know nothing about Dungeons and Dragons, nothing. Can I enjoy this? I can answer that question for you. Now, if you are someone who knows something about the world of Dungeons and Dragons, you are going to come at this movie from a completely different perspective, and you're going to be able to connect with the different things in this movie in a different way. I wouldn't say on a different level, but in a different way because they're familiar for you. They're not familiar to me. Everything in this was new. So I cannot speak to what you may or may not experience. I don't know. I can't speak to the accuracy of anything. I don't know what I can do for you. I can't really do much for you. But if you are someone like me who is 1000% ignorant on all things D&D, I'm here for you. I can answer some of your questions. And I'm sure that probably the big question you have is, can I enjoy this? Am I going to be able to follow along? Is this going to make sense to me? So let's get some of the basics out of the way. That was Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, directed by Jonathan Goldstein, John Francis Daly. Stars Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Roger Jean Page, the dude from Bridgerton, Justice Smith, Sophia Lillis, Chloe Coleman, Daisy Head, Hugh Grant, Jason Wong. So, also, spoiler alert, Bradley Cooper. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not, but he was in the thing, and my God, that was one of the funniest parts of the movie. He didn't even do nothing. Homie just sat there, just being present, and it was funny. I think it was just it was situational comedy almost. Just the way things were set up, the scene itself was just hilarious. It was just normal. Normal people talking, doing normal people things, but it was the situation of it all that made it hilarious. And that was pretty much this whole movie. It was so funny. It was very cheeky and witty. There was a lot of irony and sarcasm. Just classic comedy almost wrapped into something very modern and new. A little bit of slapstick, just very natural comedy. I thought, it wasn't trying too hard. It wasn't trying to be a comedy, trying to live up to expectations. It was just people being people in their most basic peopleness at times. But there was just kind of this witty comedy about it that was almost relatable, very human kind of comedy. Does that make sense? That's what I got from it. So on that level, if you don't know anything about D&D, I think you are going to be able to find this thing hilarious. So to answer a couple of your questions, can you enjoy this? Absolutely. Can you follow along? I think so. Now, the thing with fantasy, because I'm not big on fantasy at all, unless it's like young adult fantasy, City of Bones kind of deal. That's my kind of fantasy where we're still attached to a very normal human world, but there are fantastical elements. When it goes a little bit too far, I lose interest. So something like Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, can't do it. Not for me. If it's for you, love that for you, but I can't do it. So something like Dungeons and Dragons would normally not be of interest to me because I'm just not big into this kind of otherworldly kind of fantasy. It's just not for me. I don't get much out of it, but I really did enjoy this. But my biggest issue with a lot of fantasy is that there's sometimes too much going on. There's all these different things they're trying to combine and throw into this kind of expanded universe, I think Star Wars does a very good job of giving you a whole lot, but it's so large. It's such a large universe. It's not like you have all of these things in one place. You have a whole solar system of planets and people and languages and all that jazz. I think George Lucas did a very good job of creating an entire universe and putting all of these many different elements in there without overwhelming us. Does that make sense? But fantasy nowadays, for me anyways, tends to be a little overwhelming. There's too much in one spot. And this did this a little bit for me. Sometimes there was just too much in one spot. And I'm sure there's a lot of different elements to this game. They were trying to pack it all in about 2 hours. So at times it just felt stuffed. There was just too much. And it felt sometimes at moments almost hard to follow. But I caught up. Does that make sense? There were times they would introduce something. I was like, I don't understand. I don't get what that is. But then, 15 minutes later, oh, okay. It makes sense now. I get it. We're good. Let's keep going. So there was some stuff like that where it just felt a little wonky and it felt kind of overstuffed, not quite bloated. Not bloated in the way that, you have a director who's trying to give us way too much information in a short amount of time. It just felt like there were just a lot of elements to this world that was kind of put in. And it makes me wonder, could they have left some things out or maybe pushed some things off into a sequel eventually? I don't know. Now, if you are a big Dungeons and Dragons fan and you have seen this movie already, please talk to me in the comments. I would love to hear from your perspective as someone who loves this game, enjoys it, and you now have a movie. This thing is yours. It's yours. I would love to hear from you. But speaking from a perspective of someone who doesn't know anything, I think all the different kind of fantastical elements of this world stuffed into this movie can be a bit overwhelming. The terminology is different. This isn't like, other fantasy things that we've heard of, like Doric, played by Sophia Lillis, whom I love greatly. She was in the It movies. She played Beverly Marsh. Pulling this movie up right now, trying to get what she was called in the movie. So her name was Doric. And in any other fantasy movie, I feel like she would have been called some kind of a changeling or, something that morphs into something, a shapeshifter, if you will. But they called her a Tiefling, which is very specific to the Dungeons and Dragons world. I'd never heard that word before. So I think when you encounter stuff like that, it might throw you for a little bit because you're so used to hearing a very specific language to things that look like this, right? But D&D has its own language, its own universe, its own morphology, its own, anything. Everything is very much its own. So I think keeping up with some of that can be a little difficult, but eventually you'll get it. I think it takes a minute. And don't think too hard. Don't try to concentrate too, but just enjoy the ride for what it is, because this is a good ride of a film. It is so much fun. This was so funny. Now, here's my thing about adaptations, and I mentioned this in TikTok last night, that adaptations nowadays, because people are so attached to the source material, I think it can be very hard for writers and even directors to create something fresh out of an adaptation. It's very difficult because people already have in mind what characters are supposed to look like, what they're supposed to sound like, how they're supposed to be. They already have in mind what kind of actors should play who, what, when, where. That it can be very hard to create something that makes sense on screen. People tend to forget that when you're going from one medium to another, when you're going from book to film, some things have to change. Some things have to shift. And you have a general public that doesn't always understand that. And you have to kind of make sure you keep them because they're your base audience. They're going to be the ones that are going to convince others, hey, you have to come and see this. I love this, blah, 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 blah. So you have to stay true and honorable to them, but you also have to create something quality, and you can't always do both. So you'll have this adaptation that spends way too much time catering to this already built-in audience and leaving you didn't hear that, and leaving new people completely out to the point where we're kind of lost. We can't get anything out of it. We can't connect with it. This film, I think, does a great job of doing both. They do a good job, I feel like, of catering to an already built-in audience, because while I know absolutely 1000% nothing about Dungeons and Dragons, nothing, it's very easy for me to tell that there are certain things within this movie that are built, that are made, that are specifically just for the gamers. It's just for them. There are certain points of this movie where they say something or they'll do something or they'll film it in such a way that, okay, yeah, we're playing a game. We're playing a game. I don't get what's happening. I don't understand, but it's for the people who love D&D, I think for you, you'll find it so cool. But for someone like me who knows nothing, it's hilarious. Do you see what I'm getting at? They can take one scene and it's going to mean something different to you. Those of you who love the game, I think you're going to enjoy it and recognize the elements of it. But for someone like me who knows nothing, it's hilarious. It's it's ridiculous. I think a lot of us who know nothing about D&D find stuff like this to be completely ridiculous. And they play on that. This is a movie that is ridiculous and knows it's ridiculous and doesn't make any apologies. And I think that's what makes this movie so good is it doesn't take itself too seriously. Kind of like Megan. I think I said this about Megan too. And Megan knows it's ridiculous and didn't take itself too seriously. It just kind of ran with it. Dungeons and Dragons does this as well. It doesn't quite break the fourth wall, but it touches it a little bit. It almost gives you the impression that they know this is a movie in a sense, in a way, but also letting you know that this is kind of dumb, but not quite dumb. It's fun dumb. This is, I think, good fun. From what people have told me so far about Dungeons and Dragons, is that it's just a good time, good, stupid, kind of crazy humor. You can kind of create your own adventure kind of thing, I think. And I think that's what this movie is kind of giving here is that it's kind of good, dumb, ridiculous fun. And we're kind of going along with the journey. It's kind of a roll of the dice kind of a deal. So, yeah, I think if you're a fan of D&D, there are definitely elements in this for you, and for me, it was very noticeable that, oh, yeah, this is for the gamers. This is for them. This isn't for me. So you're gonna love that. You're going to appreciate it, but for me, that same scene was just stupid hilarious. So fun. Because they give you something that you are going to love as a gamer, and then they're gonna give me something as someone who thinks the whole thing is stupid. The way they kind of do this simultaneously, I thought was so good. What a triumph. I thought this film was so much fun. It was great acting. Chris Pine is so handsome, like the dashing kind of Prince Charming kind of handsome. Wasn't he in Princess Diaries too? Kind of makes sense. This was great. It was so much fun. Michelle Rodriguez, I don't think I've ever seen her this funny. She's always been kind of comical. She has good comedic timing. She's just kind of a natural kind of stoic kind of funny. And she was great in this. Just almost stupid, but good. And you have Justice Smith. I don't think I've seen him in much of anything else. I know he was in a Netflix film with Elle Fanning, but I haven't gotten around to see it. I'm trying to see what else he was in. Oh, he was in Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. So yes, I have seen him in something. My bad. He was also in Detective Pikachu. Paper Towns. I lied. I know this dude. I love Paper Towns. Paper Towns is a John Green adaptation, came out in 2015 with Cara Delevingne. I love her, by the way. Absolutely love her. And then the movie he did with Elle Fanning was called All the Bright Places. So he's only been, running this film game since about 2014. So he's almost into 10 years, but he's doing big things. And I'm very, very, very proud of him. He kind of started off with a bang in 2015 with Paper Towns, and he's just been kind of doing his thing ever since. And he was so funny in this, just sweet, just adorable and kind of clunky and just that kind of that good kid trying to live up to these expectations kind of vibe. And I adore Sophia Lillis. She was in Gretel and Hansel. That was actually one of the last movies I watched before quarantine. I think it was actually the last one. It was the last movie I saw in theaters before quarantine. And she's just very beautiful. She's stunning, very striking, and just she was good in this. Very good in this. I think you had a lot of characters that were very bold and she was kind of understated, but she played that understated very well. Just kind of I don't know how to make her make sense, but I loved her in this very, very much. I have never watched Bridgerton, so I know nothing about the Bridgerton dude, other than he's very good looking. And I can appreciate him for that. I'm checking his list of things out right now, and as far as I can tell, he was in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. He was a wedding guest. Bless him. He was also in Mortal Engines. I didn't see that one. I didn't see Sylvie's Love. So yeah, this is my first time really seeing him, but he is in Bridgerton on Netflix, which I have not watched. And I've had many people angry at me for not watching it. I'll get around to it eventually. Don't come at me. So I thought this was a very solid cast, also with Hugh Grant. It's good to see him on screen. It's been a long time since I've seen Hugh Grant on screen, and he's so funny in this. It almost felt like kind of a meshing of these actors who would normally not do something like this, stepping outside of their comfort zone. That's what I was kind of getting. You had these actors who normally do other things, doing something so different than what they would normally do. It's almost like I want to do something different. I want to try something new. I want to step outside of myself and see what else I'm capable of. That's kind of what the cast was giving to me. And then you have Daisy Head who plays our crazy um red wizard witch thing. I don't know the words. Don't come at me. And she was just beautiful. Just beautiful, creepy. This was just a fun movie. It was just so much fun. So if you're a D&D fan, I can't tell you whether or not you'll like it. I think you'll definitely find some things in this that were made and shot in a way just for you. But for those of us who know nothing about D&D, highly recommend. This was so funny. It was so much fun. I would totally watch this again. You know, if we still bought DVDs, I would buy this DVD and just watch it as a comfort movie. Like it's just that funny. And beautifully shot. I thought acting was great. Special effects were so interesting. Nothing to write home about. I don't think this is going to garner any kind of Oscars for visual effects or production design. Maybe I don't know. Maybe production design. I think the production design is of note, but not of Oscar note. If that makes any sense. But yeah, totally recommend. If you want to check it out, and let me know what you think. Review of Dungeons and Dragons, kind of short and sweet. Well, shorter than normal, but straight to the point. I mean, it's good comedy. So, just to kind of sum it up, I think this is a great movie for people who are not familiar with the Dungeons and Dragons world. So, if you're worried, am I going to understand it? And am I going to be able to connect with this? Am I going to be able to follow along? Yes, to all three questions. This thing was just so much fun, and it's hilarious. Great casting, great acting. And just it's a beautiful looking film, so highly recommend. I'd say a solid 8.5 out of 10. Like I think it's that good. So what's coming up? I'm actually seeing another movie today at 12:45, 1001. It actually comes out today as well. Looking forward to it. It looks like kind of an Oscar baity type of film. I've heard some great things. I try not to hear anything, but I've heard some great things. And that'll be the last movie of the month of March. April is tomorrow, y'all. So what do y'all have to look forward to in April? There's also a movie that came out this month, Spinning Gold, that I really want to see. At least I think it's this month or next month. I don't even remember. So Spinning Gold, I kind of want to see, but I don't know if I'm going to get around to seeing it. I already have my ticket for Air, the Ben Affleck film that comes out next week. I'm actually going to see it next Wednesday at 1:45 p.m. We're going to hope it doesn't run super long because I got to go to church right after. But I'm looking forward to seeing this on a Wednesday, which means I can take my time recording it Thursday, and I don't have to feel so rushed. And I can just take my time and just relax and ease into it. So I'm looking forward to that. This will be the first Ben Affleck film I've seen in theaters since Argo. I think he did Live by Night, if I'm not mistaken, without looking it up. I didn't get to see that one, but I really wanted to see it because it is a Dennis Lehane adaptation. And he also adapted Gone Baby Gone, which is a Dennis Lehane novel. I love that whole series, by the way. It's the Kinsey and Gennaro series by Dennis Lehane. Gone Baby Gone, I believe, is book 4 in that series. It's my favorite. So if I'm going to recommend a book series to you, it's not even an official book series. It's just these two characters showing up in multiple books. So it's kind of a book series. Totally recommend. So the Kinsey and Gennaro series, Dennis Lehane. He also wrote Mystic River, Shutter Island. Kind of a tangent, but I could go on and on and on about those books. So yes, Air, I'm seeing next Wednesday. I'll be able to record that review Thursday, and then you'll have a normal episode Friday. Now, I might see something Thursday as well. I haven't quite taken a look. I can't really pick out anything until after I see 1001. And then the next week, I am looking forward to this. I don't even care if it's good or not. I really don't care. Beautiful Disaster. Ah! Oh my gosh. Oh, I can't. There's so much I want to talk about with not just that movie, but with the whole genre. So get ready. Get ready because I'm going to get into it with that one. I cannot wait. There's so much to talk about with these, the spicy romance, the new adult, and there's so much psychology behind it. I want to talk about all of it. I want to talk about all of it. So I cannot wait for that. What else is coming out in the month of not April. The Covenant with Jake Gyllenhaal. I like him in uniform, so I can't wait. That's it. That's the T. And Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Comes out at the very end of April. I'm looking forward to that. Oh, I love Judy Blume. Gosh, she was such a wonderful woman for my adolescence. And so I'm looking forward to this adaptation with Rachel McAdams. Kathy Bates as well. So it'll be great to see Kathy Bates on screen for the first time in a very long time. I don't think I've actually seen her in anything since American Horror Story Covenant, which was shot here in New Orleans. The house is actually not that far from me. It's in walking distance. So Miss Robichaud's Home for Exceptional Young Ladies. Yeah, I can walk to it from my house. But that's what's coming up. I'll let y'all know so expect a review for 1001 on Wednesday, and then you'll get the review for Air on next Friday. I'm looking forward to it, y'all. I can't wait. And let me know what you think of Dungeons and Dragons. Find a comment section either on Instagram or on YouTube. And I will see you guys soon. Want to advertise on this podcast? Check the episode description to see how you can be featured on the next episode.